Well, can I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her question? And of course, the Right Honourable Lady joined this House in 1982 when there was a female Prime Minister, but very few women in this House. And she has played a very important role, and she can be proud of the role that she played in ensuring that more women came into this House as Labour members of Parliament. And she started something which has started to change the face of this House, which has been very important. I, of course, came here in 1997 as one of only 13 Conservative women, and indeed one Labour Member of Parliament approached me to encourage me to sign the private members' bill list because he assumed as I was a woman I must have been a Labour Member of Parliament. But I'm also proud to have played my part in getting more women MPs in this House, and I'm sure that amongst the women in this House today there is a future Prime Minister, maybe more than one. Later today, as I said earlier, I will return to the back benches, and it will be my first time in 21 years, so it's going to be quite a change from standing here at the dispatch box. I'm told that over the last 3 years I've answered over 4,500 questions, over 140 hours in this House. More than I might have expected, Mr. Speaker. In future, I look forward to asking the questions. But we are, as the Right Honourable Lady has said, living through extraordinary political times. This House of Commons is rightly at the centre of those events. And that's because of the vital link between every single member of this House and the communities, the commons that we represent. That's the bedrock of our parliamentary democracy and of our liberty. And each one of us, wherever we sit, whatever we stand for, can take pride in that. And that duty to serve my constituents will remain my greatest motivation.
Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7 here on Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Kenny McBride and we've just seen those scenes from the Houses of Parliament as Theresa May made her last remarks as Prime Minister at the dispatch box. She has of course now been replaced by her former Foreign Secretary, former Mayor of London, Boris Johnson. And here with me today to talk a little bit about today's events is Chris McCusker. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me in. I'm well, as could be expected.
So how are you feeling about today, about the developments that we've had so far?
I don't know. I have obviously a sense of elation at some of the people that have gone, and a sense of trepidation for some of the people that might be coming in. And I think that time would be of the essence to get a wee phone call into Mystic Meg and find out what the rest of the appointments are going to be. But listen, any appointment that's obviously the main one for us is going to be who's going to be Scottish Secretary now that Mr Mundell has been pushed, and that to me is of great concern, because if it ends up with, as some are speculating, Ross Thompson, then it's a double-edged sword, because I think actually if he does get appointed, it would ramp up even more support for independence to get out of this dysfunctional circus that we're currently living in on a day-to-day basis.
Well, as you say, Chris, there has been an extensive list of people leaving the cabinet. I saw one journalist reporting that this is the biggest change in a cabinet. This is not so much a reshuffle as a whole new government. So I'm just quickly going to list the names that have been sacked or who have resigned. The resignations: Philip Hammond, we all knew about, David Gauke, Rory Stewart, and Chris Grayling, who I saw described as having been allowed to resign, which presumably means he was told to resign or he was getting sacked. The ones who have actually been sacked, we have Karen Bradley, David Liddington, James Brokenshire, Penny Mordaunt, Liam Fox, Greg Clark, Damien Hines, Jeremy Hunt, Mel Stride, Jeremy Wright, Caroline Noakes, Claire Perry, and, as you said, David Mundell. So far, only 3 posts have been filled, but they are the 3 great offices of state. The new Chancellor will be Sajid Javid, the new Home Secretary is Priti Patel, and the new Foreign Secretary is Dominic Raab. I suppose it's worth pointing out that just a few years ago, Priti Patel was calling for the death penalty to be reinstated, which as Home Secretary is somewhat worrying, and the new Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, is the man who didn't know that Dover to Calais was a particularly important crossing for imports and exports for Britain. So it has to be said that we are not necessarily dealing with the most competent new cabinet that could be put in place. I mean, Boris Johnson himself, it's almost like we don't have to talk about it, but sadly we do. What do you think Boris Johnson as Prime Minister means, firstly for the UK and secondly for Scotland?
For the UK, his appointment sadly signifies to me that he is pandering to the populist right in England at the moment, and Wales, unfortunately. And he will do anything and everything in order to garner that hard right support, both within the Brexit Party and the Tory Party as well, because you have to recognise that quite an awful lot of Conservative voters migrated to the Brexit Party and left their constituencies rather thin on the ground. So he would have to sort of like bring them back in, and the appointment of Priti Patel, as you rightly pointed out, is mind-blown. It really is, you know, for someone who was actively seeking to bring back the death penalty, to be in charge of home affairs and stuff like that. I do an awful lot of work with refugees and asylum seekers in Glasgow, recently with the Circle Lock evictions, and that just really makes my skin crawl, to be quite honest with you. Dominic Raab, again, that's another one, you know. I mean, does he actually know where Brussels is? Will he get lost in the airport? You know, but the observation that I heard today, which actually made a lot of sense to me, is that Boris Johnson may be a jack of all trades and a master of none, but he was described by one Conservative correspondent for Conservative Home magazine or something like that. He actually put him down as a delegator, as in someone who will, you know, say to Priti Patel, that's your brief, you get on with it. Say to Dominic Raab, that's your brief, you get on with it, and I'll see you at the end of the week, and you know, and I'll mark your jotter out of 10 or something like that. Do you know what I mean? And that to me tells that says to me that Boris really isn't. He's trying to be all thing to all people in this job, because the one thing that Brexit is obviously the one thing that he's got to deal with. However, there's other things that are, you know, just simmering away quite nicely. One obviously being Scottish independence, and his rhetoric so far is all about being, preserving the union and all the rest of it. But what he also has to deal with is the current state that we've got ourselves into with Iran, which is actually possibly, I would say, might offend a few viewers here, but I think that's actually more sort of like pressing potentially than a question of Scottish independence. But the more that he tries to spread himself around on the ground, he lays himself open to an awful lot of sort of like, other people's gaffes, and in life, in professional sort of like business life, you try and hone your skills to the one job and make sure that you do that job right. Now, I possibly believe that that's what he's trying to do. However, being a Prime Minister, there's, like 30 odd different jobs that a Prime Minister has to do, and one of them is to, manage a team. So I think he's just got to the part where he just wants to manage a team and let them do the work, whilst he scurries about and all the rest of it, and makes his play for being all things to every person within the 4 countries of the United Kingdom. It doesn't bode well.
So, thinking about the Iran situation, obviously that's going to involve some communication and some cooperation with America. Trump has already offered his congratulations to Boris. He has described him as Britain's Trump. Apparently that's what we call him over here. I don't think Donald Trump realises that it's not necessarily meant as a compliment. But how do you see the so-called special relationship developing with these two populist, seemingly quite hard right people in charge?
Creepy. I honestly see it being very, very creepy. It's like you've got, if you can try and inject a bit of levity into the conversation. If you remember, years ago there was a cartoon, an American cartoon called Wacky Races, and there was if you can think of Dick Dastardly and Muttley could possibly be Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage, and Trump being one of the Ant Hill mob. You know what I mean? Sort of like overseeing the thing in a kind of like mafioso type. Nobody can touch me, I can do no wrong. And he's got Boris and Farage to basically do his dirty work in Britain, so that because they're eagerly wanting to carry on this TTIP partnership that they're looking at, the transatlantic trade, which again brings out, we're not talking about the chlorinated chicken here, we're talking about pesticides being put into farm produce, grains as well, long before they get to the kitchen table. And they are not, because it's not been regulated by the EU, they don't have to put them on the actual packaging. Which is something else. Again, there's the whole chat with the fact that Trump wants to go after the NHS with a vengeance, and I believe that Boris will facilitate that, because Boris is ideologically the same as Trump insofar as he sees himself as a corporate mogul who will do anything in order to grease his palm for after his tenure. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. Trump is a businessman first and foremost, and he won't do anything for America that won't benefit him directly. And I'm talking maybe a couple of years down the line. You know, and I can see that this is the ideal appointment for Trump. An ideal appointment for Trump.
Yeah, you brought up Nigel Farage. I mean, Donald Trump was saying something along the lines of, I'm sure Boris and Nigel will do wonderful things together. Nigel Farage has no role in our government at the moment. There is obviously this idea that Trump wants him as the new ambassador. It does seem like that would seem a little bit too spineless even for Boris Johnson, to have the ambassador dictated by the American president. But at this stage, you have to wonder how much Boris feels that he needs Trump's support.
I think he would heavily rely on Trump's support. I mean, that speech that Boris made outside the door of Number 10 today could have almost been written by a member of Trump's staff.
Not written by Trump, obviously.
Well, no, do you know what I mean? Because, you know, unless it's got dot to dot, do you know what I mean? There's no point in giving it to Trump. But it was actually frightening, and it was showman-like. Do you know what I mean? It was showman, and an awful lot of emphasis has been put on this. Boris has got an element of sparkle, and he's got an element of entertainment, and you know, this re-energising the party faithful, and that to me is, you know, it's a horrible prospect, because you're going from one level to another, because British politics has been so staid and, you know, polite and correct, and you know, and delivered in a very direct fashion. Here you have now, you've got Boris Johnson, you know, trying to jazz it up a wee bit with, you know, dude or
yeah.
You know, and that to me is playing to the crowd and playing to the television, which he done fantastically when he was on Have I Got News for You. So you know, and that is possibly, you know, his comedic element that he would try and sort of like bring in. But you know, could you use comedy when you're sitting down with a dictator in order to try and sort of like break the ice?
Or indeed sitting down with the EU leaders trying to somehow manage Brexit. I saw the letter that he received from Donald Tusk, which was literally 2 lines. It said, "Congratulations to Boris Johnson. I look forward to sitting down and talking with him in detail about how to get this done." I mean, it could hardly have been more terse. And actually, I've got a quote here from Leo Varadkar, which is similarly kind of about as polite a way of saying, you need to get your act together, son. He says, "I look forward to sitting down one-on-one and for our teams to meet and to see if they can put a little detail behind those slogans and statements." Which, you know, if you hear that in an Irish voice, it's very much sort yourself out, sunshine. You know, it's about as blunt as diplomatic language gets, I think. And also, I have noted down here, just talking about the kind of leader that you'll be. Boris Johnson said himself, "We in this government will work flat out to give this country the leadership it deserves." And I'm wondering, first of all, which country, and what did we ever do to deserve Boris Johnson? Do you think we do deserve him?
I not from a Scottish perspective. I think that from the Brexit perspective, I think that you were always going to be destined to get him. I had a sort of like a funny wee tweet earlier on where a friend of mine put on my timeline that back in 2014 at a hustings, my actually jokingly my comrade friend Blair McDougall from the Better Together campaign famously said that an audience member asked him if there was ever a possibility of Boris Johnson becoming PM, and he ridiculously said, absolutely not, I would rule that out in an instant. Well, lo and behold, it's come back and bit you on the bottom. So anything is possible, and if you wish hard enough for it, I'm pretty sure that you're going to get it. Now, I have no doubt, and I've got no issue with the fact that the majority of people in England and Wales voted to leave the European Union. That is absolutely fine, and they should have a government who could facilitate that. However, the people of Northern Ireland and Scotland did not vote to leave, so therefore that should equally be respected. Now, obviously, Theresa May didn't respect that in any such way, shape or form, because of the fact that obviously she didn't want to be the one who was seen to be facilitating any kind of breakup of the union. You know, and it could have been done in a variety of forms, in a variety of ways. But if there is going to be this special deal for Northern Ireland, and again we get shut out, then that's just obviously going to hasten everything down the line. Does that then make Boris's premiership all that shorter? I mean, could it even be as short as a week? You know, because all the SNP are really waiting for is for Jeremy Corbyn to find his spine once again. I believe he found one today when he actually refused to applaud Theresa May from leaving the chamber. So he must have borrowed that from somewhere. But if he's got the spine and the gumption to stand with the SNP and put in a vote of no confidence directly, and trigger a general election, then, you know, who knows. But on the wider front of that, you know, I also heard someone mention that if you vote for a clown, hey, you get a circus. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, as I said in my opening remarks, you get, well, you know, as well as could be expected within this circus that we're having to deal with.
Well, we do actually have some poll numbers from yesterday regarding Boris Johnson becoming Prime Minister. The question was, Boris Johnson has been announced as the new leader of the Conservative Party. Which of the following best reflects your reaction to Boris Johnson becoming leader? For Britain as a whole, delighted 10%, pleased 18%, disappointed 10%, and dismayed 37%. Yeah. In Scotland, that goes to 4% delighted, 11% pleased, which is presumably the entire Tory bloc.
Yeah.
And then 6% disappointed, 54% dismayed. An absolute majority. There's 14% don't really mind and 11% don't know. But an absolute majority of people in Scotland are dismayed by this news. We have obviously seen previous polls saying that support for independence would rise if Boris Johnson became PM. Obviously, hypothetical polls, there's only so much you can take from them. But do you think this actually brings an independence referendum any closer, given that throughout the campaign for the new PM, there would seem to be a competition to be who could be the most dismissive of the Nats?
I don't honestly see it bringing it any closer or any sooner, and I say that because I know that Nicola will be carrying on regardless, obviously. You know, I mean, she would have pretty much predicted this outcome, and I believe that her and Michael Russell have been, you know, beavering in the background for this very scenario, and you have to go through all the the rules and regulations with the Electoral Commission. She's possibly hanging off to see if there is going to be a general election within the first couple of weeks of Boris's tenure. Now, the bigger question there is, does she fight that general election solely on an independence mandate? And basically, force his hand, because before he was appointed, both of them came out and said that they would definitely not discuss any form of Article 30 and and any request from the Scottish Government to break away from the Union. So, I believe that they've been doing work in the background, quietly getting on with, in a dignified manner, I have to say, as they always do, and every dot will be dotted, or every I will be dotted and every T will be crossed to make sure that it is deliverable. I still think that it is going to be 2021, and I don't think that she would be in a rush to bring that forward unless there was a real significant change. And that significant change could actually be the appointment of Ross Thompson as Scottish Secretary.
Well, just on that note, we have a press release here from the SNP saying, Ruth Davidson has once again been left utterly humiliated after she desperately urged Boris Johnson to keep David Mundell in his position, only for the new Prime Minister to ignore the advice and sack the now former Secretary of State for Scotland. Prior to the sacking, Ruth Davidson said that the new PM would do well to take his advice on Scotland. He knows the Scottish Government inside out. He's sat across the table from Nicola Sturgeon and looked her in the eye many times, and I think that experience will be invaluable to the new Prime Minister. Mundell was sacked despite pathetically pledging support for serving in Johnson's no-deal Brexit cabinet. Now, bear in mind that previously David Mundell had said quite explicitly that he wouldn't serve in a Johnson cabinet.
Yeah.
He now has been sacked after seemingly he and Ruth Davidson begged to stay. As you said, there are fairly strong rumours that Ross Thompson may be the new Scottish Secretary. He's certainly somebody who's been as close as he could get to Boris Johnson since he first got to Westminster. Some other suggestions would be Douglas Ross, Stephen Kerr possibly. We will let you know if we get news on that before the show ends. But what do you think this does for Ruth Davidson and the Tories in Scotland more generally?
It seriously undermines Ruth Davidson, because she also said that she couldn't work with Boris Johnson because of his attitude and his views. And so, both of them have now, well, obviously David Mundell doesn't need to eat a humble pie anymore, but I'm sure he'll be lamenting over the fact that his ermine robe is to be mothballed in the cupboard, and unless there's something else down the line. But Ruth Davidson is on a sticky wicket. Because she had said, and even Jackson Carlow said it as well when he was standing in when she was on maternity leave. So the Scottish Tories as a whole, out with the 13 poodles that are at Westminster, the Scottish MSPs have, they are floundering at the moment. Most of them have a severe distaste for Boris, and it'll be interesting to see how they actually support him on a weekly basis at First Minister's Questions. But the overarching conundrum that Ruth Davidson has got is, how is she going to broker some sort of relationship, because she will have to deal with him, and obviously she will have to deal with any successor to Mundell, Now, I don't know what relationship she has with the 13 MPs at this moment in time, but there doesn't seem to be anybody there, to be honest with you, who, you know, I mean, you could say Ross Thompson, you could say Stephen Kerr, you could say Douglas Ross, you could even say Paul Masterton, my own MP, and none of them strike me as, you know, with any bounding confidence. You know, because you know, sadly, David Mundell has set the template. He's set the bar for Scottish Secretary, being basically the England's viceroy in Scotland, and the amount of damage that man has caused Scottish industry is just astounding. And any other younger person without, you know, David Mundell's, you know, and I use the term loosely, experience, because there is no doubt that he has experience. His experience in being a devious, snivelling, conniving scrote. I have to remember that I'm, you know, on television here, because David Mundell just brings out the worst in me. I can't honestly, you know, I look at all 13 poodles and I look at them in the exact same fashion. There is none of them that have got an appealing quality. You know, I was actually slated on Twitter for actually congratulating my own MP for having the cojones to actually vote against his government, Paul Masterton. And SNP members slated me for that. You know, and I've got to say, well, you know, okay, you know, he is I wouldn't use a word despicable, but you know, he hasn't covered himself in glory when it comes down to respecting his constituents. But you have to give credit where credit is due. But you know, trying to put credit on the shoulders of the 13 poodles that are there is a very hard thing to do. But again, equally, none of them have got any cabinet experience. So you know, the bigger question could be is that, does he either scrap the post of Scottish Secretary altogether to have this overarching vision of unionism, or does he give it to a more experienced MP down in England? Because if you remember, Labour ran without a shadow Scottish Secretary.
After Ian Murray.
After Ian Murray resigned. So it's interesting times that we live in. But again, I go back to, I mean, all this is hyperbole and all the rest of it, and I go back to what I said earlier, that the onus is not so much on the SNP at the moment, the onus is on Labour, to be honest with you. But you know, we've been guessing since April. You know what I mean? You know, will we still be guessing come Christmas?
I mean, do we think that, first of all, that the opposition parties could muster enough to win a vote of no confidence? And secondly, do we think anything good would come out of a general election?
Well, see, it's a difficult one, because we had the appointment of, unfortunately, which will bring up another question again, of Jo Swinson as the leader of the Liberal Democrats, and how that plays out with regards to her asking questions on evil is anybody's guess as to how that goes. Now, would she be willing to give up her seat to contest a seat in England in order that she can further the English Democrats? because they are quintessentially the English Liberal Democrats. You know, and just casts aside Willie Rennie to be in the political wilderness, so to speak, because she is again coming out with this, our precious union and all the rest of it, But again, it's hypocritical to demand a second referendum on the European Union, but not a second referendum on Scottish independence.
Yeah,
So,
particularly when nobody's won a mandate for a second referendum on Europe.
But more so the fact that she allegedly spends more time in England than what she does in Eastern Bartonshire. And I could actually see that being a possibility, unless they can parachute someone else in for it, to contest the seat of Eastern Bartonshire. And again, that was a personal tragedy for me, because John Nicholson, that was the MP that she won the seat from, was a fantastic MP, an absolute brilliant MP, and he done much to bring the question of honouring Turing's law through the Parliament.
Sure.
She's a polar opposite of John Nicholson, obviously, and that to me just seems like that seat is a seat that could be viewed as a jockey seat, to be quite honest with you. So you have to put that into the equation as well. But you've got how far is Boris willing to run in sort of like Scotland to sort of like hold on to the union, because if he takes his eye off the ball down south, he could hemorrhage a couple of seats to the Lib Dems, who are seeing a resurgence. They could also see, right, well, we're fed up with the Tories, let's vote Labour and get someone else in. So I don't think that Boris can spread himself too thinly.
Well, I mean, Scotland would pose a pretty significant challenge if there were to be a general election. Most of those 13 seats are pretty small majorities, and as we said earlier, Boris Johnson is not a popular man in Scotland, and that's going to be a major drag on getting the Tory vote out, I think.
Yeah.
We've talked about quite a number of things so far, and we haven't even really mentioned Brexit.
No, fleeting that we did. But.
So, I mean, it is in many ways the most important issue facing any of us right now. We have less than 100 days now until Boris has said Brexit will happen, deal or no deal.
Yeah.
Do you believe him that there will be no more delays? And which do you think will happen? Which do you think is more likely, a deal or no deal?
I firmly believe that it will be a no deal. His chat of refusing to rule it no deal out scares me, and it scares probably half of the population. So the fact that he is willing to favour that, and all this, going back to what we were saying earlier about this bravado show that he's placing himself in, so I think that he would do it without a blink of an eye. Because going back to his speech earlier on today, it was all about values of the Second World War and everybody mucking in and pulling together for the sake of the empire and stuff like that. So I think he's bullish enough and stupid enough to actually contemplate a no deal. it'll be interesting to see what his meeting with the EU is going to be, because I don't believe that I honestly don't believe that they're going to change anything, and they're going to insist on the Irish backstop, which will actually force a no deal, and that is going to be devastating.
Varadkar did say that his position had not changed, and that whatever happened, he had to defend Ireland's interests and the interests of the EU, because they were still going to be members. So just to digress very slightly, we've just had some breaking news. So Ben Wallace is the new Secretary of Defence.
Who is he?
Well, that was pretty much my thought. I mean, there are a number of names who were in the cabinet previously that I didn't recognise at all. And Michael Gove has been made the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which, as far as I can tell, is a job with no specific responsibilities. And I'm literally just getting in my ear, Liz Truss is going to be the Trade Secretary.
Oh, heavens above.
And President of the Board of Trade.
Heavens above. Heavens above.
So it's quite a cabinet that's coming together.
Liz Truss really frightens me from a trade union point of view. She has got no business experience, to my mind, whatsoever. So putting someone in there to boost the economy, someone that doesn't have any experience, and from what I've seen of her when watching her in the House of Commons, she has got the, how can I say this nicely? She has got the she's got the attributes of a dull ashtray. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you just want to push it away. Do you know what I mean? Because it's absolutely stinking. I don't know. I might get the old shepherd's crook thingy here. If I go one step further and just say that she has the face that she always looks like a horse has just had a shit in her handbag. Do you know what I mean? Because she has got no personality. She is a complete robot. It actually, now that you're mentioning these people going into these positions, it backs up what I was thinking, that Boris just wants people to do a specific job and report back to him, so that on a Wednesday he can then say, well, we've done this, we've done that, we've done the next thing, and they can sort of like basically write his Prime Minister's questions for him. Do you know what I mean?
I think my concern on that front is something my mum said. I was talking to her a wee bit earlier, and she said that Boris Johnson has such a short attention span that you'll be like a Wayne that's nagged you for months and months and months to get a particular present, and then as soon as he gets it, he does not lose his interest and wants to play with the box. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that it hasn't come out, that he may be bipolar. And some people who are bipolar are very high functioning, and some skills, not very high functioning, and other skills, most notably social skills at that. So, again, these appointments seem to me like that he is identifying skills and putting people to that skill set and saying, report back to me.
So just to get back to Brexit again very briefly, we did also hear from Michel Barnier, who said that he looked forward to discussing things, that there would be no change again to the actual withdrawal agreement, but that they were open to discussing changes to the political declaration again. Which it's hard to see how big a difference that could make, given that they tried just separating out the political declaration a few months back, and the vote didn't. The withdrawal agreement itself didn't pass. The question obviously now is, does the increasing pressure, does the thought of Boris Johnson running No Deal Britain scare enough of the hardline Tories into voting for the deal? And perhaps even, do we even think Boris Johnson will bring the deal back to Parliament?
Well, see, as I say, the EU have said that it's not up for negotiation, and all throughout this leadership jockeying, they have both said that they will go and they will negotiate another deal. Right now, what part of this isn't up for negotiation do you not understand? That to me means that Michel Barnier will not renegotiate that. Opening up the political declaration doesn't affect the
withdrawal agreement.
The intricacies of the withdrawal agreement, because it is only a declaration of an intent. The thing for me again is that they will go to Europe, and on the back of the fact that they had a meeting with Michel Barnier, they will come back and present Theresa May's deal for a fourth time. It will not have changed. Do you know what I mean? So that'll be the fourth time. What was it they used to say back in the days? One's a wish, two's a kiss, three's a disappointment, right? So God knows what a fourth is. A calamitous, catastrophe. Because that deal will not go through, and that is the only deal. And if you listen to what Theresa May has constantly said, 3 times I voted for the deal and 3 times I would have voted against it. So there is no other deal, and you're not going to be able to negotiate another deal because A, the EU have told you so, and B, you've only got 99 days in order to even do it if they were such way inclined.
And that 99 days includes a recess for conference season and the summer recess.
Correct.
So the time is actually only a few weeks of actual parliamentary time.
Yeah. So, and that then makes a no deal more realistic. Because, he's not going to jump over to Brussels every day and chap on the door. He's going to go over the first available week that they're back, because he's not going to go this week. This week he's already said that he is going to spread himself about the British Isles, and he's going to go to Northern Ireland, he's going to go to Wales, he's going to come up here. How that will go down, God
I'm sure
only
there will be
knows.
people here to meet him.
Well, it will be stage managed.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, and the Conservatives have got a good track record in stage managing.
Getting Theresa May in and out without anybody noticing.
Yes, I correctly. Let's use a remote hall in the middle of the Gairloch or something like that. You know what I mean? Down a one-track road.
Yeah.
That will all be stage managed, and it will project him in a positive light. But you cannot stage manage what is going on from the EU. You know what I mean? The minute somebody puts a hand up and says, no, we're not negotiating this, how can you turn that into a positive? So it automatically then goes to a no deal. And that's just that. And as I said earlier on, Boris is bullish enough and stupid enough to actually, entertain a no deal. Which again, equally will, again, add a couple of percentage onto the polls that we were talking about earlier on. I had to actually say, whilst we were talking about that, I meant to say that a BBC reporter yesterday actually quoted that the appointment of Boris Johnson sees an insurgence of the percentage in the polls for Scottish independence at 60%. She actually said that on BBC News.
Yeah.
That to me was a biggie, because, you know, either she's brave or she knows that she's going to get, you know, the back of her hand slapped, or even, you know, even better, maybe a disciplinary. Personally, I would give her a bloody knighthood. But you know, that figure again was quoted by Ian Blackford today on Common Green, on, you know, whatever the bloody Green's called. College Green. You know, and he reinforced that. Now, again, and going further back, we started on a percentage of 22 and ended up with 45, you know, and we haven't even begun an independence campaign yet in full throttle. Yes, it's been simmering on in the background with all the rallies and stuff like that, and all the marches, and the incredible work that the Yes groups have been doing throughout the country. But again, you know, Nicola hasn't said ready, steady, go. So now we're looking at, you know, if you're looking at 60%, even if you meter that down to 55, if we're starting on 55, you know what I mean, then, you know, definitely it's going to come. But as I say, whether it's going to be sooner or whether it's going to be later, you know, it's anyone's guess as to how Nicola could possibly ramp up her sort of like timescale. Because I was led to believe that Nicola favoured the middle class income earners to actually see how much Brexit will actually impact on their personal finances. You know, and once they see the impact of that, you know, and the possible loss of 100,000 jobs within Scotland as the UK goes into an economic recession, that would possibly turn people's heads and, you know, make them more likely to, you know, go, right, well, this isn't working the way it is, and the only alternative is to give them a try. Do you know what I mean? And I made a passionate plea on the steps of Buchanan Galleries yesterday at the All Under One Banner demonstration to actually just reach out and just lend either the SNP or the Scottish Greens your vote. Once we get independence, then we can deal with recriminations, and then we can deal with the who's, what, where, when and why. But once we get independence, that allows us to decide what country we want to become. And I can honestly see it as a global reset button for Scottish politics, so that we can actually create a true rainbow party, a true rainbow parliament, which is reflective of all voices, because at the moment the only voices really who are reaching out to the Scottish people are the SNP and the Greens. You know, because the numbers just aren't there for the unionist parties, no matter how hard they try. You know, I mean, Labour have shot themselves in the foot time and time again. They've absolutely lost all credibility within Scotland. You look at the Tories, you think, you're a bloody joke. Half of yous are, you know, elected on the list. And then you look at the Lib Dems and you just shake your head and wonder why. You know, so you know, we have to get that across, and I think that that's the game that Nicola was playing. But as I say, circumstances may take her further on than that.
I mean, we've heard this story really ever since, actually, before the Brexit vote, and possibly even going back to 2014, that Brexit would be liable to lead to people deciding that they did want independence after all. Do you have any concerns that there might not be the best way for a country to be born or to be reborn, if it's done for that kind of negative reason?
No, not really, because I think you have to remember that there have been think it was it 160 countries have stepped away from the empire through time, and not one of them has asked to come back. So, you know, I honestly don't. There has never been a precedent where you could sort of like say, yes, you can go with, you know, our blessing, because the empire it lost those countries through those countries choosing to self-determinate. And the colony of the British Empire, you know, throughout the last 500 years has been constantly shrinking. You know, with every passing decade, and you know, and some of it has been down to natural wastage, as could be seen by the establishment. You know, more notably India. You know, where they've basically soaked the place dry and just said, well, it's no use to us. If you want to make a go of it, on you go. And now you look at India, and they are a competent country. You know, some of their political choices are, you know, leave a lot to be desired. But you know, that I think that's going to come with any government around the country. But you look at other countries that have stood away on their own. I was recently in Prague, and I just walked about that city in awe and wonder to see a city come through Nazism and come through communism and come out the other end as an absolute jewel in the Czechoslovakian crown, because it is such a beautiful city. And you know, looking at it in depth, looking at it just even for the transport system alone, which has been in there since before the First World War, and it is still running today. And you know, you didn't wait for any more than 5 minutes for a bus or a tram or a metro. They must be doing something right, and I hasten to add that it is now a socialist republic.
Well,
you know, and obviously that just sits me down to the ground. But you know, as I say, you know, countries have had their issues to deal with, and nobody is suggesting. You know, I would never be as stupid enough to suggest that it's going to be a land of milk and honey from the day go. But it has to be better than what we're currently enjoying at this moment in time.
okay, well, thank you very much for that, Chris. That is all we've got time for this evening on Scotland at 7. My name is Kenny McBride for Broadcasting Scotland. Do check out the website, sponsor the channel if you can, donate what you can, follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks very much.